Sonic Boom Episode 22. Fire in a Crowded Workshop. We start out with Tails discovering that his workshop had an explosion, so his friends are covered in soot instead of dead for some reason. Tails' reaction isn't nearly realistic enough. Sonic decides to tell him everything from the beginning. So Amy flipped out because she didn't want mayonnaise on her burger. Her fault for going to a restaurant where the guy always gets her order wrong. And Amy in the present insists that she wasn't really that angry because it's not the Amy we're used to. Are we supposed to assume she's lying? Because it would be totally in character for this Amy to get mad. Then we see Sonic making Amy jealous as he flirts with a fangirling Percy, being good with the ladies like he should be. It was kind of cool in retrospect that she got a cameo in the boy bands episode, now that I think about it. They made her model before they even needed it. Amy pretends she feels sorry for her when she's got a hurt arm, and Knuckles self-awarely admits after splashing Percy with mud that he always messes up. Then Sonic brings Percy with him, and Tails' friends plan on trying to repair her scarf. Knuckles puts the scarf in something to heat it up, and Amy self-awarely says that she's bossy and needs to control people because she's insecure. That's terrible dialogue. No one would ever say that. If she had that kind of self-awareness, she wouldn't be Amy. She wouldn't be acting like herself, ever, because she'd feel too guilty. I think this is proof that the writer hates her. Then Sonic puts out the fire with a bucket of water. Then Knuckles tells a story about him being a sailor, looking for the elusive white whale which just trashed Madburger from the ocean. You know, it would be actually funny to see him somehow do that from the ocean after Sonic lampshades this, but I guess the writer didn't think of that. He says that as usual, Sonic made a fool of himself, and Sonic talks in bad acting introducing himself, and Percy somehow never heard of him. Wow, Knuckles is really insecure to think he has to do this. Then she's into Knuckles, who talks all smoothly and brags about himself, before picking up Sonic when he's on her bike and humiliating him. Then Amy hopes she can live up to his expectations, and she and Percy fawn over him for his muscles. Realistically, most girls would be like this around him. Sonic trips and falls into the mud, sending her bike into it, and it's amusing that Knuckles calls him the perpetual oaf in Second Banana. It shows you how awful the show is that I vastly prefer how the show is when Knuckles is telling the story. He deserves to have a bone thrown for him for once. This whole show is coming off like Sonic writes it, because Knuckles is such a parody of himself. And it can't be Amy writing it, because of a line like this. We see Sonic burn his finger. And he says he wants to give Percy the pillow so he can be more like his hero Knuckles. And Knuckles tells his friends that he put out the fire with his ice breath. He has to be doing this on purpose, because unless he has severe memory problems, he knows this isn't how it went. He's just trying to be a funny storyteller. Anyways, Amy retells the actual story, which so far is only untrue because Amy is being too compassionate. Six warns him about government agents and runs away screaming, and they just act so casual and flippant about her panicking so much when she clearly needs help. Percy says that her arm hurts, and wishes she had a cushion to rest on, so Sonic and Knuckles started a fire by fighting with a pillow. Amy extinguished the fire that started because Sonic forgot to turn off Tails' welding laser. They wouldn't forget that. It was fascinating to see Sonic in a welding mask. Wouldn't it have made more sense and been way more interesting if the bumbling inventions were Sonic's because he was trying to learn how to invent from Tails? It would be him trying to grow as a person, learning a new skill. And it would make more sense because it's Sonic who's making the inventions, while Tails is a genius. He's not supposed to be always screwing up. So you could have Tails' invention only occasionally screw up. Then Percy retells the story to tell you how it really happened. It's basically how Sonic told it, right? Amy's jealous of Percy because men are fighting over her and she's not being independent. And even though it's not her fault she got injured. And Percy's acting cool, saying that she's not that hurt. Okay, so it is biased. Knuckles takes away her scarf, saying the honor is all his, and Amy calls her a drama queen unprovoked and gets her a heating pad. All three of them fight over a pillow for her and the fight starts. I guess Sonic just wanted a lame excuse to spend a whole bunch of time with her, because he could have carried Percy to the hospital in 3 seconds by just running. So he didn't need to try to help her with her broken arm herself when he wouldn't be qualified for that. Tails asks how they got into his lab so easily without having to deal with lasers and cages. His new defense system, he was smart enough to build finally, had short-circuited. So really, he's the one responsible for the fire because his friends got into the lab. So the story ends with him fixing Percy's bike as she uncomfortably flirts with a kid, saying she likes the guy who's handy. I don't remember Percy being desperate for a boyfriend, but she seems cool. If Tails thought to make a defense system for his lab, how is it new? And how did he not make a defense system for everybody's house that only went off when Eggman went near them? This episode was about the various Sonic characters retelling the story of how Tails' lab got a bunch of fire in it. Basically, the guys were all distracted trying to get Percy to date them, while Amy was being a sour bitch the whole time, with nothing like about her at all. Seriously, Boom Amy sucks. She's just weird. And she's still got a bad temper. That's the real problem with her. I can't remember any time she had a good dynamic with Sonic where she was nice to him or on the same wavelength. It's the Sonic and Sally dynamic all over again. Even though you think they have more in common, he deserves better than her. Normally people ship the two because they're so in sync, like she's a female Sonic, but that doesn't really work when they just do nothing but argue. Anyways, it's probably a budget thing that the episode was made by recycling the same general scenes and character animations. Good thing things got varied up by biased retellings, but Amy's was the least interesting. All Amy's flashback did was portray her in exactly the same way as Sonic's did. My favorite was the Knuckles one. Knuckles gets the shaft so hard in the show that I love seeing him glorified for a change. That applies to the whole franchise. The idea of someone not appreciating him getting thrown a bone seems so alien to me. Satisfying to see him like this, and amusing to see Sonic being clumsy and desperate for Knuckles' approval. At the very least, you think most of the girls he'd walk past would be fawning over him all the time because of his muscular build, since it's considered the stereotypical masculine ideal apparently, and people tend to value strength more than intellect. So it's ridiculous that this isn't the case just so that he can't have any sort of edge over Sonic. The writers are too in love with Sonic. And when they had Amy outright say that she's bossy and demanding, I realized that maybe the writers hate Amy, or at least the one who wrote this episode. No one who likes a character and takes them seriously as a person would have them insult themselves like this and still continue to have the same flaws. Amy has no right to be bossy when she's been incompetent comedy relief the whole franchise up to this point, and all she can usually do is swing a hammer. What's with this weird demonization of her as someone who keeps butting in trying to help and being condescending to people and being a jerk to Percy because men actually like her? Why is Amy written like the bitchy feminist in this episode? I'm a girl and you know you've screwed up big time when even I hate her, rather than actually being appealed to by this strong, independent woman. Like, she's not even a feminist in the show normally. Just in this one episode. Because, like, this is the same character who they try to give every girly hobby possible to, who told 6 ladies don't fight. Why does anyone like Boom Amy, other than them not experiencing Fleetway Amy? Fleetway Amy doesn't obsess over Sonic either, and she's nicer than this. She's like Sally. She was written by someone who hates Sally and only writes the worst in her. Not the parts of Sally where she's insecurely doubting herself too easily or worrying about the safety of her friends and whether people can be trusted and being self-sacrificial. Sally's polite most of the time. It's just that when she's not, it's way too memorable. Saying Boom Amy is like Sally is a freaking insult. I can't remember one time when Boom Amy was likable. She is nice in some episodes, but it goes to show you how bad her behavior was in this episode that I completely forgot about all of those times she was nice and harmless where she is likable. But at times like this, she makes Sonic X Amy look fine. Because at least with her behavior in A Date to Forget, it was just what I expected her to always act like. Tantruming over Sonic not dating her. If she was the guy, that would come off as way more alienating. But I'm not used to Amy being rude like this. Percy's hurt and she doesn't even care. She just wants to feel smarter than her. Would it kill the writers to write her hugging Tails and complimenting him and being a good friend on a regular basis? That's what an actual nice person would be like. It wasn't Amy supposed to be the heart and soul of the team? Because in the adventure game, she discovered that her role was to talk to people. So she talked Shadow and Gamma out of being evil. Then they abandoned that. I couldn't imagine this Amy talking anyone out of being evil. It's like the writers just portray her as a grumpy bitch because they're sick of her and want to write someone else, but can't because she's a game character and part of the main cast of Sonic. So while they can get away with having an episode without Styx annoying us, they can't give Amy the dignity of being ignored. But if this is how she's going to be portrayed from now on, I never want to see her again. Well, that's a lie, because I am interested in the new talents that she'll get in later episodes. But they're usually just talents she has because she's a team girl. So it'd be more interesting and progressive to give those talents to someone else, and make Amy take a vacation instead of being a bossy bitch. What really got me to turn on her was how fake she seemed about caring about Percy's injured arm. All she does is take it as an excuse to lecture her about bike safety. She seemed so manipulative and condescending when she tried to pretend she cared about her. Like she would only ever get away with this because she's been in the franchise for a long time, so she's gotten a lot of fans up to this point. But this is a horrible thing for her to do. I want Fleetway Amy back. There's no reason to bitch about her when this Amy exists. People like her because she's an Amy that's not a parody of herself chasing after Sonic. But when you have her literally say that she's bossy and demanding and controls people to feel better about her own insecurities, as if she literally goes to a therapist and is perfectly fine with repeating what she's been told about herself, she is a parody of herself, just not the one we're usually familiar with. Fleetway Amy is a cool, independent, wisecracking hero in her own right, who also doesn't obsess over Sonic, and she's a likable character with a unique skill. With Boom Amy, I wanted Percy to date Sonic on her. Why not? They're both cool characters. I'm sorry, Amy's not a good female character. And Styx isn't a satisfying one either. I like her a lot more in the comic, but I don't have to hear her awful voice. I love her when she's actually doing things, not just wasting our time with arbitrary conspiracies that she'd only believe if she needs serious help. And the show's making light of that. So I really want to see more of Percy. So I'm guessing that, like Zoe, it'll be extremely rare when she shows up because we need to focus on the painfully unfunny comedy-related characters all the time, and can't ever have a relaxing break from them. You'd think if Sonic was supposed to be cool, he would date Percy for the rest of the show, no problem. Anyways, calling out Amy Rose aside, eventually Tails is forgiving and humble enough to blame himself for the fire in his house, because his defense system short-circuited. Even though if his friends had stayed out of his lab, things would have been fine. That's the Tails I love. Seriously, Boom Tails is the best. I can't remember the last time he was a punchable genius. The show gets him perfectly. And it's sad that in the games I find him either boring or irritating, because he could easily be like this. A sweet, naive kid who cares about his inventions. It's like the perfect mix of Kid Tails, because no duh, he's a kid, and Engineer Tails, who usually has the writer forget he's a kid. It's just a shame that most of Sonic Boom's originality is not in the lore and unique setting, but in either having original characters who usually suck, or getting the ones we know completely wrong. A tropical island town is unique for Sonic, but it's not a setting that the writers put a lot of work into writing the history of. But we are halfway there now that we know how its political system works. Now I just wish I knew its name. Maybe something really shitty, like with a G at the start of its name. I'm not nearly as interested in the show as I was with the first 3 episodes. It's been an active struggle to motivate myself to watch these episodes when I know I can't trust them to make sense. I was lucky this one was good. Episode 22-2. It wasn't me, it was the one-armed hedgehog. We started out with Eggman doing his own dusting of some sculptures he has, while singing all non-masculinely. He really doesn't trust Cubot. This is his job. He screams because he lost his particle accelerator. Wait, in retrospect, that's a narrative cheat. He has to know where it is. Losing it is part of his plan. So did it get misplaced by a robot, and he formed a plan around this? And somehow a cop agreed to come to his base about it. I guess because if he refused, he'd attack the police station. But the whole plot would feel less forced if he literally said to him, "If you don't come, I'll attack the police station." Orbot then tries to give some unhappy civilians a tour of Eggman's base, and for some reason they gasp when they find out one of Eggman's inventions was stolen. Why would they gasp? Why are they on Eggman's side? Why do they gasp when Sonic's accused of it? In fact, wouldn't they want him to not only steal from him, but destroy all of his machinery? Because all he ever does is abuse it. Eggman says his lair was littered with chili dog scraps, so it has to be him. I guess that Sonic will turn out to be innocent because this writing sucks. And Sonic is way too passive in the show to go out of his way to even steal Eggman's inventions like he should, let alone destroy them. Sonic says that he's the hero and Eggman's the villain. Point out the obvious that the people should get already. Like, he has an evil base. Then it turns out that Sonic has footprints like his own in the base, and the cop is gonna arrest him! This episode is enraging. You know it sucks when you're enraged by the first paragraph. Those same civilians waste my time talking when I never want to see them again. Although it's interesting that the scam artist old lady planned on giving Sonic poisoned cookies. But why would she? He's the hero of the world. And she lives in a town where Eggman's constantly attacking it every day. This plot's completely unbelievable. If Eggman could have brainwashed those people to disapprove of Sonic doing something he should have done, why the hell is it that he hasn't taken over the world with it? So that can't be it. So there's nothing that can make this make sense. Unless these guys aren't really the civilians, but are actually infiltrator robots. Then we see Sonic wearing glasses, and he tells the civilian that he's looking for an imposter who framed him. Why would anyone be on Eggman's side when he got stolen from? Seriously! If they want him to rule over them, why haven't they just taken a vote? Then it turns out that the civilian who was knocked unconscious earlier was hit by too many horseshoes, because somehow that happened a lot. And somehow the doctor knows the cure to that injury, and it's in the wood. I can't not read out the script with a completely bewildered tone when the show is so completely ridiculous sometimes. Knuckles assumes Sonic is some guy who knows Sonic, even though he's blue and he saw him speed off in a blue blur. So it has to be him. Unless Sonic's not the only one who can do that in this world. Well, that would explain why Sonic is fast, because he might have the speed gene. Knuckles says that he doesn't want to lose him, and there's people after him. Somehow. I wish they at least explained that everyone's scared of Eggman, and that's why they're humoring him like this. And so he threatened to kill them otherwise. Even then, that's not sympathetic. They should know that Sonic would win the end. How does anyone think Sonic took Knuckles hostage? Then Sonic discovers that Metal Sonic was his imposter. I'd be a lot more hyped about this if I hadn't already known that Metal Sonic was going to show up in this show. Knuckles constantly punches Metal Sonic, and it just makes a realistic clinking sound, and he doesn't react. This is confusing because normally Knuckles has super strength, the kind that let him punch directly through some spears that Eggman sent at him. And he has to have super strength, or else he'd never be able to beat any robots with his punches. So this robot has to be made out of really great stuff, like carbon nanotubes. He gets Knuckles thrown against the tree, where he talks like he has brain damage, and he blasts a laser at Sonic. Sonic avoids it, and jumps out of the building that seemed to collapse on him. I guess he spin dashed into the ground to avoid it. And then he spin dashes at Metal constantly. Then Metal quickly gets a second wind, and uses Eggman's particle accelerator to start glowing and floating with purple energy, with Sonic complaining that he's cheating. Oh, it's ripping off Sonic 4 Episode 2. Can't they think of a new power? Metal chases Sonic all over the place, passing by multiple locations in a wonderful display of their speed. Sonic says he's tired and acts like it, but then says that he doesn't get tired and throws something at Metal to make it explode. Well, at least it took a while and he was tired, so it's kind of climactic. He then brings stuff back, and Eggman naturally reasons that Sonic still seems guilty because he has that stolen stuff, so logically he could have been the suspect. Somehow, Sonic himself was too stupid to bring Metal Sonic with him as proof, and instead the random civilian who was knocked out earlier that the plot forgot about was the one who brought him here, even though Sonic didn't bring him the medical stuff he needed. Sure was convenient that this guy was strong enough to carry Metal Sonic all the way here, when he weighs over twice as much as Sonic. Doesn't he weigh over 200 pounds? And this guy just got a concussion. Eggman says it's all lies, but then immediately gives up and starts revealing it with the truth with his speech, and walks off carrying Metal Sonic. It would have been a more impressively intelligent plan of his to frame Sonic if he framed him with a robot that looked exactly like Sonic. Instead, The story ends with the traitorous idiots who tried to prosecute Sonic earlier lost in the woods. Sadly, this won't be the last time we'll ever see them. That's a shame, because logically there are a lot of wild animals and poisonous berries in the woods. This episode was enraging. There's just no way you can make a concept like Sonic is considered the bad guy by everybody for stealing from Robotnik good. Even if it was justified with him brainwashing everyone. Well, that would help, but I still would have been frustrated with them before finding out they were brainwashed. So the episode would have still been just as aggravating. And of course, if he can brainwash people, if he forced the ass and taken over the world with that, it's the OSTH problem all over again. So there's really no way to make this fun. You'd have to be sadistic to like this. They could have explained everyone's behavior as they're just humoring Eggman because they're scared of what he'd do to them or their town otherwise. That one thing could justify all of the times people just casually let Eggman walk around town without getting an angry mob to attack him. And when he shows up without his robots and Eggmobile, he's not causing any trouble because he can't. He relies on those things for his villainy. So there's technically nothing to be afraid of when you see him in person. Oh, well, aside from the fact that he could just go back with the Eggmobile to find you. So, never mind. He could send his robots after anyone he wants. This is a guy who enjoys causing collateral damage and tries to kill some people every day. Why is there an entire crowd of people visiting Eggman's base out of concern? Isn't that a crime scene? Wouldn't that be closed off so people wouldn't lose the evidence? At least the lack of DNA evidence connecting Sonic to the so-called crime can be justified as not giving it all away because Sonic always wears gloves. So he doesn't leave any fingerprints, and they know that. It could have made sense that they're even bothering to prosecute Sonic for stealing from someone who clearly deserves to be stolen from if just one person explained that we have to humor him, Sonic. Who knows what he might do to us? But we're not scared of you. You won't destroy a building or anything. The problem is, we see some of the civilians alone together, and they seem to be talking as if they're actually against Sonic and think of him as a criminal. Do they really think this is funny? Does the writer really think this is funny? One of them wants to poison him. Although at least he's a criminal, so she has a reason to see Sonic as an obstacle. One of them is the mayor! Pretty important figure who can just turn on Sonic at the drop of a hat. Am I seriously supposed to be endeared to these villagers? Because this isn't the only time they turned on Sonic. That officially makes them worse than the people of Pneumo Metropolis. And you have to be trying to be more infuriating than that. It's not like the mayor is in favor of Eggman, or he would have given his job to him. It's not like most people in the village like Eggman, or they'd have voted him their mayor. And then we'd see what he'd be like as a ruler. And oh no, that'd be too interesting. We shouldn't have had any scenes with these guys, because the writer should have known how much we hated them. It was so weird and off-putting to see Sonic say he's a hero as evidence for why he couldn't have stolen from Eggman. Because I immediately thought back to Archie and basically every other version of Eggman, where Sonic would be a hero for stealing from Eggman because it'd keep him from using it for evil. And even if it somehow was something good and harmless, like the cure for cancer, it'd be better off taken away from him anyway so it could be shared with the world instead of held prisoner in his base. Who knows what he'd charge people for a particle accelerator? Sonic would be the hero for stealing it so he could just give it to someone for free, when otherwise they'd have to pay a huge amount of money to Eggman for it, when obviously Eggman shouldn't be given any money. Especially since look at his fancy house. Building that must have cost a fortune. Is this why the heroes aren't aggressors and are just passive? Because they get into legal trouble for breaking into Eggman's base and destroying his stuff? Because they don't seem to get in trouble for anything like that. They don't get in trouble for destroying his robots. The crowd could have at least explained to Sonic that they don't think it's right to steal from anybody, even Eggman. They could have said that he deserves it, is probably how all thieves justify their actions. And they could have said that a particle accelerator doesn't sound like it could hurt anybody, so what good would stealing it from him do? They didn't know it would be a weapon for Metal Sonic. Although I don't see why I powered him up. Well, first off, it just looks like purple glowing energy. I don't even know what it is. But more importantly, all he did after that was fly around at the speed I'd expect him to fly in the first place. It's not like he threw energy balls at Sonic. Even then, that'd be stupid, since he should know he dodged them. It was cool to see Metal Sonic. I was expecting there to be a stupid twist where the person who framed Sonic was someone who looked almost just like him, but with one arm, considering the episode's title. When it comes to Sonic wearing glasses and a headband looking totally lame, I actually assumed that was someone other than Sonic or Metal Sonic, and that was the guy who framed him. But that'd be too interesting and creative and different. So instead it's Metal Sonic who frames Sonic. Because that hasn't been done before, except in Fleetway where the plan actually worked. My point is, it was cool to see the action scene. It was interesting that they buried it up from Sonic spin dashing at him because the building almost fell on him. But it wasn't worth it. There was just no way to make the concept of people treating Sonic like a criminal enjoyable. Even if the people gave us some of the many explanations I came up with. It still wouldn't have been so bad if we just got one person saying, "We're still on your side, we don't care if you're guilty or not, but we just can't afford to take off Eggman." But if that's the case, if they'll do anything Eggman wants out of fear, even if it means trying to arrest Sonic, why haven't all of the heroes been put in prison by now? Why don't they arrest Sonic for destroying his property, which would be just as illegal as stealing from him? Eggman could just keep doing this plan over and over again until he'd eventually win. And he can make robots to frame every hero. He can make Swifty. Sure, they have no reason to believe him now that they know about Metal Sonic, but so what? If they say they don't believe him, he could go attack their town. So they wouldn't say that to him because they want to protect themselves, so they'd have to go after the heroes. If the civilians are just gonna go along with it and side with him whether they know the framed party is innocent or not, if they're that easily manipulated by him, how's he not already gotten rid of the heroes by now? This is the same town that actually let Eggman sue Sonic. Whoever approved his lawsuit like that would only do that out of fear. That has to be why everyone in the town or every military in the world hasn't all ganged up on Eggman's base and taken them to prison. Because they're afraid of what he'd do to them and think they can't do anything against them. So if they're all that complacent and humor him that much, you'd expect the mayor to just hand him his job at this point. Besides, all they'd have to do is wait for the heroes to force him to stop. So why not humor him to his face to buy them some time? All Eggman has to do is frame them for something, and they all humor him instead of laughing in his face and saying he deserves to be stolen from and hanging up. And I can only assume it's because if the cop hung up on him, he'd attack the police station. And they want to at least try to avoid him causing collateral damage. The same has to apply to a cop actually saying to Sonic that he's under arrest. How did he expect him to not immediately run away? Of course he took off. You can't arrest Sonic. At least they didn't do what issue 40 did, where Sonic was literally handcuffed and trapped in prison by his own friends and put on a biased trial. He was smart enough to not get caught off guard and handcuffed because he's fast enough to avoid that, or the cop was too slow. So he immediately took off, and the episode didn't focus on it too much. It's just that the very fact that all the civilians act like they're legitimately against Sonic ruins the entire episode from sheer aggravation. They wouldn't be like that. The mayor is part of that crowd, and he doesn't give him his job. So he can't be an Eggman supporter, like the rest of them clearly are, so he must have a limit somewhere when it comes to humoring him. But that limit doesn't extend to not arresting Sonic, who helps prevent Eggman's collateral damage. But it does extend to not giving him his job, even though he'd attack the mayor's office in retaliation if he didn't. I remember seeing it before, and it didn't exactly have a high-tech security system around it, or metal walls that can't be destroyed. In fact, Eggman literally made Cubot damage a part of it. So how does that make sense? Wouldn't Eggman be constantly attacking the mayor's office to try to take over the town? You'd think it'd be a focal point. You'd think there would never be a mayor's office around because he'd always get destroyed. It'd take 2 seconds for him to fire a missile at it while keeping the heroes distracted with robots like usual. This episode sucks. Normally this is a failed attempt at a comedy show, so that just makes this all the more clueless because the whole concept of an entire town turning on Sonic and him becoming a fugitive is dark in tone, not comedic. SDC Online showed how dark that kind of thing can really go. So that's a bullet Sonic narrowly dodged because he actually got to show people Metal Sonic. And even then, only because some guy forgot to help decided to bring him to him. I guess the crowd constantly gasping was an attempt at a joke, but how is being infuriating funny? So even by the standards of the people who love the show for what it fails at, it still sucks because it's not even good at what Boom is considered to be good at, which is being a comedy. I barely remember Boom Knuckles trying to be funny for the fans at all. And even for me, Orbot's got too small a role, and I don't even remember Tails saying anything. And Eggman was unsympathetic and annoying. All the best parts of the show, in the general opinion, were completely absent. You know an episode sucks when you want to write one paragraph for the summary. You could have stopped there because the plot is so basic, but you're so mad at it that you ran for way more. It would have been a lot more interesting if instead of Metal Sonic, it really was a one-armed hedgehog, who looked almost just like Sonic. Because that would have explained why there are blue hedgehogs in the world and why nobody makes a big deal out of it. There's plenty around already and it's no big deal. So that's why Sonic was born, because there were plenty of blue hedgehogs around. It also explained better why there was chili dog residue at the crime scene, because he would have actually eaten it instead of Metal just leaving it behind on purpose to follow his programming. If it wasn't a robot and instead a hedgehog, he could have verbally justified his actions, saying that Eggman's a jerk who deserves to get stolen from. So he'd be a great audience surrogate and someone willing to take further action than the overly passive heroes against Eggman for once. And then Sonic would convince him that he got him in trouble and he has to clear his name. And we could have been told that the civilians were actually on Sonic's side, but only humored Eggman so he wouldn't attack their town one more than normal. It really sucks when the plot could have been easily rewritten. Also, we could have still had an action scene. Sonic could have met Metal Sonic after meeting the guy who looks like him. Part of the reason I was hoping it wasn't Sonic was because it was so demeaning to Sonic to have him wear glasses and wear a headband, making him look kind of like a hipster. Because it was like the show was tried too hard to be relevant to internet culture. No Sonic show before this ever tried to do that, and we were better off for it. We were more easily invested in the universe instead of distracted by being reminded of real life, which is the exact opposite of Sonic's appeal.